the final ingredient is shared values and life goals. We both like health and fitness. We both like trust and integrity and love, and we both value family. And that's like to me, they're the three big ingredients that you need to have a long-term sustainable relationship. And then there's like a couple of things that you sprinkle over the top of that that are super important as well. It's like these are the ingredients, and the icing would be commitment and the ability to communicate really well.
Why are relationships so hard for so many people?
They're really hard for a lot of people. A lot of people. Most of the work that I do is in the relationship space. Even though I don't call myself a relationship coach, it's basically 80 to 90% of the work that I do. And, as you ask that question, what comes to mind for me is all of the conversations that I've been having with women through various means, whether it's coming through advertising, through my marketing, commenting on my Facebook. And I hear the same thing from so many of them, that relationships are really, really hard. And I think the biggest thing that stands out for me is education on one, what makes a relationship work, and then two, like the ingredients for a relationship, and then also how to continue on with a relationship is one of the biggest areas that I think that we can focus on if we want to improve our relationships. And I think about it like this: most people aren't taught how to have good relationships, so it's quite foreign to them. And, sometimes I reflect and I think I'm pretty good at relationships and I still need help and assistance. But think about it like this, right? You're going to go into a relationship and you haven't really done any education, you've never read much, you haven't studied anything, you haven't done any courses, read any books. It's like driving a car. Imagine I just handed you the keys to a car and you'd never really been in a car before and you'd never driven on the road and you'd never been on the road before. And I just said, hey, go and drive that. And this is really quickly how it all works. It sounds foreign. If it's not within your experience, it sounds really foreign. So I think that education and learning how to be better at relationships is one of the biggest things that I find missing for people. Because as we talk about relationships in these conversations I'm having, one of the first thing that comes up is, so what's going on in your relationship that's caused you to reach out and connect, and we talk about that. We'll go into that a bit deeper, I'm sure, shortly. And then I'll ask a question like, so what are some of the things that you've done to try to repair this before? And most people have done almost nothing because they don't know where to start, they don't know what to do, they don't know who to listen to. Um, so they get stuck in these cycles of thinking that when it comes to relationships, love is enough and then everything else will just figure itself out. It's just not the case.
Definitely not the case. It would be nice if love were enough, but there is so much more to a relationship. I mean, if for an intimate relationship, of course, you want
Hmm.
love to be there. Otherwise, what's the point
Mm.
in putting in that effort? But to nurture that love and actually have a healthy, stable relationship, there's so much more that goes into it. And something that I'm noticing, I think the blueprint, I guess you could call it, for what we used to have for relationships, which was get married, have a family, the man works, the wife stays at home. And there was this emotional disconnect because I think it was more based on survival. Having a marriage or a relationship was more based on survival. So you wouldn't be alone. So you'd have family to take care of you when you're older. So you'd have financial security, things like that. It was more based on survival. And now we're talking in the Western world, of course. Now things are changing. People aren't just getting into relationships, or people aren't getting into relationships based on survival anymore. They don't need that. Like, you can stay single and earn enough money
Hmm.
to support yourself. And if you're single when you're 70, you can go into a nursing home. You don't need to, I mean, of course, that sounds very lonely, and it would be to be alone your entire life. But I think what people are wanting out of relationships is very different from what it used to be because we're in a different society now. And we don't have guidance. Like you said, we haven't learned how to have that kind of emotionally vulnerable and open and deep relationship. Because based on our parents and our parents' parents and our parents' parents, a lot of those relationships were just going off the
Mhm.
old school method. And a lot of that has just really just come from survival. And of course, doesn't mean that the love wasn't there, but that openness and vulnerability and intimacy and emotional depth, it wasn't as much of a priority. But now it can be. And I'm curious if you're seeing that too, if that's, playing into why people are finding it so hard, because our expectations have changed a lot of what we want out of a
You're so
relationship.
right. I think our expectations have changed hugely, but I think our access to what we perceive as connection has broadened so much with technology that it's kind of like, well, I don't need to put in too much work to this one because, if I swipe right here and we have a few conversations and she doesn't sound like I like her or he doesn't sound like I like her, there's a million other people on this app I'm staring at right now, who are all kind of pretty, and that's the entry point, right? They're pretty and they look interesting is the entry point. And let me just also say there's nothing wrong with that because attraction is usually the first point for a relationship. That's perfectly okay and perfectly healthy. But I think not only has the landscape changed in terms of people not needing relationships as much as they did, but the accessibility to how many people they could potentially have a relationship with has changed. And I read a really interesting thing this morning. I'm just going to bounce a little bit off topic that said that 70% of people reported that on their second marriage, they were far happier than on their first marriage. It's just a really interesting statistic. And it made me think because I started to read the comments because I get really interested in people's perspectives on that. And the overwhelming number of people who said something like, I actually wish my ex-partner really well, and I wish that I had have worked on it more, and I wish that we had have known what to do so we could have kept it together. But what I have done is taken my learnings from that first relationship and put them into this one, and that's why it's better for me. Which
Mm.
is
So it's the learning
it
again.
comes
It's
back
like
to
what
the
you said.
learning.
People just don't know what to do. They haven't
Yeah,
learnt. Yeah. They haven't learned how to have a healthy relationship until making all
yeah,
the mistakes in one, learning a lot from that, and then transferring that knowledge
yeah,
to a new
absolutely.
relationship.
And I don't know about you, but I learn from mistakes just like everybody else does. But failing in my marriage is not one of the lessons that I want to learn from. I want to be able to fix that before we get
Yeah.
to that point, without a doubt. And in
Mm.
January, we're going to hit
Hmm.
25 years together in a relationship, and it's
Wow.
it's been challenging through different periods. Like we've hit all the different phases you would
Hmm.
expect in a relationship. We were very, very young when we met. I was 20. So there was, relocating together, buying houses, selling houses, getting jobs, building careers, raising our niece and nephew together, buying and selling cars, moving from place to place, Blue Mountains down to Sydney, figuring out holidays, deaths of family members, the honeymoon phase being over, and then having to work on a relationship and build it, and then hitting the roommate phase that everybody hits at about that 10 to 15 year mark. Like we've had to manage through all of that. And if at any point either of us could have walked away, there's so many other people out there that you can go to. It's such a simple thing now to walk away from your relationship. Whereas a long time ago, before the landscape changed so much, particularly without all the technology, there wasn't a whole heap of people. You're going to meet someone else in your local area, and that's the only way you could meet people. Mm.
Hmm. Yeah. And also, not to mention how much you and your wife have changed since you met. I mean, I think that's something as well as that we're supposed to change. And I can imagine you're a very different person
Oh,
now
yeah.
than you were when you were 20. So it's growing with each other in a way that you can see that, okay, so the way that we're growing, it's still working for both of us. Not that, oh, I have to keep myself small so that we can make this work, or I have to change myself, or I'm not allowed to grow in
Hmm.
this certain direction, otherwise it's not going to work. It's growing. I think it's like evolving together. I'm guessing you probably had to reassess your relationship
Mhm,
multiple times, just with the different growths. I don't mean reassess in terms of like
mhm,
should we leave, but reassess in terms of we're different people now. So what does
mhm.
our relationship now look like?
Absolutely. What does the next phase for us look like? What do you want to do next? What do I want to do
Yeah.
next? Where do we go from here? When you have those lulls in intimacy, how do we fix our intimacy problems that we're having? When you want to do different things, I wanted to go and live overseas for a period of time, and she was kind of on board, kind of not. I've had jobs where I used to travel 30, 40, 50 weeks out of the year. And she's at home by herself, navigating all of those things because I'm growing a career at the time or whatever else was going on in our lives. All of those things have been huge portions of growth and change. And we've hit points where we've gone to relationship counseling together because we needed somebody else to intervene to try to help us to work through what was going on. Because even though I work in the relationship space, I've got blind spots just like everybody else. And it doesn't mean I'm an expert on all of my own stuff. So we've been through periods of counseling to work through some of these things and to see where we can support each other better. And that level of education together has been so valuable in particular because there was a phase,
Mm,
particularly when I started in the coaching space in relationships, where she felt very behind because I'm learning all of this stuff and she's not. And I'm wanting to do all this new stuff and wanting to have these deeper conversations and explore more things. And she's like, "Hey, like it's been 20 years. Why are we talking about this stuff?" So, as you said, there's a lot of growth that happens in relationships, and you really need to communicate heavily through that and bring each other along.
mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. I can really resonate with what you're saying. And I think anyone who's listening who has been the partner that's been the one to get like really go dive deep into the personal development world and go a little bit crazy, I can really resonate with the all of a sudden wanting way more depth. And I can fully appreciate that would be quite could be quite confronting or overwhelming for the other partner who hasn't yet stepped into that world.
Mhm.
So I'm seeing just a few different directions we can go with this
So
conversation.
many.
And I'm trying to decide which way to go. Um, so there's something that you mentioned in the beginning.
Mhm.
There's that aspect. So because honestly, those who listen to this podcast, they are probably that partner that's gotten into the personal development, and then their partner is maybe not so interested, or they're a little bit interested, but they haven't gone as deep. That's one thing we could dive into. The other thing is you talked about in the beginning of like learning about what works in relationships, the ingredients to a healthy relationship, and how to continue a healthy relationship. That could be a thing in itself. And there's just a random little topic I wanted to talk to you about, which is like the issue of technology, not necessarily the dating apps, although that can be part of it, but just because there are so many portrayals of what a healthy relationship is on social media. Like you see these relationship accounts of people portraying their relationship. You know, the couples that put up their relationships, like they document their relationship online. Then you also have so many opinions from different people of saying what is a healthy relationship, how do you have one? And so even just that topic, I'd be really curious to dive it deeper into that with you and talk about what are the benefits of that and what are the negatives of that and how does that impact us and how do we navigate that? Because it's a lot of information coming in. But of course, all three of those could be podcast episodes themselves. So I'm curious because we can actually, these can be the
Oh
topics for the
yeah,
next few episodes, to
absolutely.
be honest, because I think they're all
And they're all
really
big.
valuable. And I think the listeners,
Mm.
they're all big as well. And we can't cover them unless we sit here for the next 4 hours. We can't cover them all in one episode. But I don't know about you, but what's standing out to me is just because that's the last thing we talked about, the, I'm losing my words here.
Traction?
Being the partner
Mm.
that gets into the personal development world, and your partner isn't quite getting into that, because that's something I've never talked about with people, at least like in depth. But with those 3 points, which ones do you think we should start with? What would be a good
I think let's start
flow?
back at the start which is the people think love is enough and there's more that goes into it. And then I think that's
Hmm.
going to clarify some of those other points and give us a starting point for those other points to talk about. Yeah, I think
Nice.
let's start
Love
there.
it. All
Yeah.
right, let's do
Yep.
that.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
So for the
go.
listeners, we are gonna, I just want to recap. We're gonna cover what what makes a relationship work, the ingredients to that, and how to continue a healthy relationship. So like starting from the beginning of is why is love not enough? That's kind of like I'm assuming that's what we're going to be going into. Then we're going to cover those other topics in the next upcoming
Mm-hmm.
episodes. Very, very cool. Something to
Woohoo.
look forward to. I'm excited. Yes. All right. So two,
Yeah,
you
so
were about
what
to
I was
say
going to
something.
say is the biggest pain point that I hear from people is that they went and found somebody and then they got into a relationship and it was fantastic. It was like love bombing and passionate and deep and intense, and they're so mysterious. And, like, love life is outstanding, and all of this stuff is going so, so well. And then they hit a point where all of a sudden it's not going so well, and they can't really figure out why it's not. And they start to build up a little bit of resentment about what their partner's no longer doing, or things they're missing out on, or things they want from their partner that they're not getting. And then they start to turn some of that passion that they had into passion of arguing and bickering, and fights get really explosive. And there's lots of tension and there's lots of emotion in the relationship. And then eventually they start to tolerate more than they should. And then from there, they get really sick of it. And a big explosion happens. They break up with them. And now that person's a narcissist. And then they'll be single for a little while and they'll do that. I don't need a stupid man. They're all useless. All they do is cause me pain, etc., etc., etc. Then find another relationship and rinse and repeat. And that thing happens again. Mm.
So interesting. I love that you've called out the narcissist label because there
Yeah.
are plenty of them out there, but there's not as many as we've like it's become really popular to
Yeah.
label anyone that has done hurtful things or has had behavior that isn't the
Hmm.
best. We all do
Yep.
anyway. And to label them as a narcissist because they didn't give you what you were looking for in
Yep.
a relationship. And tell me a little bit more about that cycle because I feel like that's really common. And also it's possible that maybe people are in a relationship and they're
Yep.
feeling that way now. Quick break to let you know that if you want weekly support at no extra cost, come join my free support group on WhatsApp. Every week we start off with a message of motivation, and halfway through the week I share a resource with you that will help you in your healing journey wherever you're at. It can be a meditation, it can be a tip, trick, a skill, a podcast episode, a resource, anything that I've discovered that has helped me or I've seen help this community or my clients. And not only that, but I actually get a lot of inspiration from some of the conversation that happens inside that WhatsApp group for podcast episodes. If you want to influence what kind of topics I cover in this podcast, then come join the group because I am right there with you. It's me personally posting in the group, and any questions you have or support you are looking for, I will answer you directly. To join this amazing free WhatsApp group, the link is in the show notes. Go ahead and click on it. I'm so looking forward to having you with us.
I think there are different phases of relationships without a doubt, but I believe that that physical attraction and that excitement and that chemistry is the starting point for relationships. That's how it happens, right? You see someone and they're super attractive, or you love their stuff, or you meet them out somewhere, or you see them at the gym all the time. You're like, man, they are hot, and that's how it starts. That's generally how relationships start. And then you get to know them and you talk to them a bit. You're like, man, and then you ask them out, and then you go on some dates. That's kind of how our old school relationships start. They're a little bit different these days as the landscape has changed. But I think that attraction is absolutely probably the first and one of the most important ingredients to start a relationship. And that attraction period, that lust, that excitement, that finding out all about somebody and those, deep conversations that go till 3 or 4 in the morning where you're just talking about all this stuff and it's like this person sees me so much. That goes for a period of time, like the honeymoon phase is it's commonly referred to as. And then when it gets to the end of that, people don't know what to do next because they're like, why did that stop? What happened? Don't they like me anymore? Do they not find me attractive? How come they're not giving me as much attention as they were before? And that's a portion of where a lot of the relationships that I hear about through the feedback and the conversations I have, that's the point where people really start to get stuck. A little bit of resentment then starts to creep in, some negativity, some arguing and bickering, or some turning on myself. And well, I need to change to fit into the person that this person wants me to be. And then, of course, that's never going to last because you can't pretend to be someone your entire life for the sake of a relationship. And I think that that's where the education piece needs to come in so people can feel more comfortable about what it should look like to go into a long-term relationship and then how to maintain it.
Mhm. And it's really what I'm hearing and what you're saying is that after that honeymoon phase, when the conflict starts, when the hurt starts to build, when it gets uncomfortable, essentially what's happening unconsciously is we are trying to fight or we're trying to twist ourselves into something so that we can get back to that feeling of feeling seen,
Absolutely.
which is what that honeymoon phase gives us. We feel seen, we feel connected, we feel heard, we feel important, we feel significant. And then the difficulty starts because then those things start to they're not as easy anymore. And it requires a bit more effort, conscious effort, and you need to think about it and put the effort in and have hard conversations. And then that's like you said, people don't know how to do that. They don't know where to start. A lot of insecurities come in. And so that's when we start to either fight to demand to have that feeling back, or we twist and change ourselves into something else so that we can maybe try and coerce that feeling back in a more subtle kind of manipulate it back. Either way, it's manipulation, but it's either through direct fighting or through trying to change ourselves or subtly change
Sure.
the other person. And what it sounds like is the education part is we're moving away from that subconscious kind of reactivity and moving into more conscious, intentional action that allows us to intelligently build a healthy
Sure.
relationship.
And set the expectations for what a healthy relationship really does look like,
Mhm.
despite all the stuff that we see on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube accounts and everything else. Because whilst people will look at some of those sources for relationships, they also need to understand that most of those people are making money off their content. So they're not necessarily going to show you the
Yeah.
truth, even when they say we're showing you the truth and put up some forced vulnerability. And some of the things that people do, and not everyone does. There are some other really good accounts out there, I'm sure, but that's not usually what
Yeah.
rises to the top. And I think that I just want to
Yeah.
touch on one more point about that honeymoon phase. Through all of that passion and all the excitement and all of the newness of a relationship, there's also a couple of things people overlook. People ignore a lot of red flags during that phase. They ignore a lot of things that come up because it's so fun and so passionate and the sex is so great and they see me so well and they're so interested in me that they ignore some of the niggling red flags that they know are there, which is a really, really important piece
Yes.
to understand. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I'm curious. What are some red flags
Not to
not to
ignore.
ignore?
All right, I'll give you a couple of examples,
Yeah.
just of things that I hear. That I found this guy and he is amazing and he's gone through all the same stuff as me and he just knows me on a deeper level than anyone else. And I know we've only been dating for 2 months, but we've moved in together. And I'm like, ding, ding, ding. And they're so smitten. They're so smitten by it. And to me, that's just like massive red flags. 2 months is not long
Okay.
enough to know if you are compatible with somebody or not beyond the honeymoon phase, beyond the excitement, getting to know each other, phase. That's a big red flag that I see.
Mm, okay. So moving, how would you label that in a
I
word?
would say
That
moving
red
too quickly,
flag.
not spending enough time in the dating phase before you start
Yeah.
to, yeah,
Getting to know each
yep.
other. Really.
So that's one
Hmm.
big red flag. Another big red flag that I see is introduction to children really quickly. It's like I'm dating this guy and now he's
Mm,
around all the time and he's here with my kids all the time, or meeting my parents or coming out with my friends all the time, really, really early on in the relationship. I see that as a red flag. It's my belief that, mums are there to protect their children, of course, and you would only introduce people to your children once they are somewhat stable in your life, which means you're planning on having some sort of long-term relationship. And that may be seen as an old school view, but I believe that that's the right way to do it because you're always looking after the children.
hmm. And it makes sense because it's having that awareness of, okay, things are amazing. I really like this person, and I feel like it's going to be a
Mm-hmm.
great relationship. But then also having the awareness of, but I also don't know
Yep.
this person that well
Mm.
just yet. So maybe I'll give myself some space to just
Mm-hmm.
explore this, get to know it, take it slow. It's like what you said with wanting, feeling the urge to just move really quickly and
Yeah.
dive really deeply into it. That's kind of like having that awareness of, okay, this feels awesome and I'm loving
Mm-hmm.
it, but I
Yeah.
can slow down.
Yeah. Because if this is really
Yeah.
awesome and this is going to continue, we've got all the time in the world to introduce to my parents
Hmm.
and to my friends and to, start sharing Facebook accounts, introduce to my children, move in together, all the things that people do. And there's also something in relationships about savoring those experiences and not trying to rush them, like that
Mm,
delayed gratification of knowing that you're building up to something. So when it does happen, it's like super special because you've waited to move in for however long,
yes.
or you've waited to do something special, go on holidays together maybe for a period of time. They become even more special to you when they
Hmm.
happen.
Yeah. And what just came to my mind then is when you rush in the beginning, it's kind of like scrolling, where you're just trying to get to the next
Yes.
dopamine hit. You're just looking for the next thing, but doing that in a relationship, like skipping from one thing to the next, of like, what's the next thing that's going to be super exciting and
Mhm.
that's going to feel amazing? And all these things that you listed, they're
Mm,
exciting things. Like moving in together, exciting. Sharing
mm.
a Facebook is exciting. Meeting family is exciting. Can be nerve-wracking, but
Yeah.
it's an exciting step. And when you try and shove that all
Mhm.
into just a few months, it's just that intense, um, just craving that intensity because it
Yes.
feels so good, rather than that, like, kind of sitting with it and enjoying the experience,
Yes.
being more present. And I know the listeners, people who listen to this podcast, really do desire and value more
Absolutely.
presence.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And what's another, well, so we've got 2 red flags. Let's go with the third one.
Oh,
3 is a good number. What's the third red flag that you
a
notice
third.
that
Hmm.
shouldn't be ignored?
Which ones have we done? We've done moving in together. We've done introduction to kids and family.
So
Yeah.
moving too fast. Yeah, moving too fast in the beginning, and then, yeah,
Introduction to
introduction to
kids
kids
and
and
family.
family.
What's another red flag? Um, you made me think now. What's another red flag that's really common? Ah, can't believe I forgot that one. Still talking to all of their exes and other people, other girls or other guys while they're dating you and normalizing it like it's an okay
Mhm.
thing to do is another red flag.
Yes.
And that is one that I
Yeah.
that I hear fairly regularly as well. I hear that more than moving in together,
Wow.
funnily enough, but it didn't come to mind first. But that they've just come out of a relationship and they're still figuring out things with their ex, but they've definitely broken up, but now we're together. That type of approach to me is a red
Mhm.
flag.
Yeah,
It's like you finish a
definitely. I
relationship
agree.
and you stop and you separate and you make sure everything's done. And then maybe you spend some time doing some work on yourself and healing from that breakup. And then you go out looking for a relationship when you feel that you're
Hmm.
ready. So it's almost like a rebound relationship
Yeah.
situation. Mm,
Yeah. 100%. That's a good
yeah,
one. Good one to bring up. And also the three things that are really they're
really
really
clear.
clear. And it's really easy to spot that in yourself or in another
Yep.
person as well. And this is just something that came to my mind. But now I think because of the
Hmm.
development of AI, I feel like there needs to be some awareness of people's words and how they show up through
Hmm.
messages correlating to how they show
Mm.
up in person. Because I have some friends who are in the dating scene, and ChatGPT can be a real
Uh-huh.
romantic man. So, but then, the person has to then, if they're very romantic in their words and thoughtful in their words through messages, can you actually
Mm.
see that showing up in person? What are your thoughts on that? Because I've been thinking about it a little bit, and of course, some people are better at expressing themselves through written message. I'm just also seeing that, wow, people can really be someone else because they just type things into ChatGPT and then they copy and paste. And they say all the right things,
Mm.
do all the right things. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. We'll just talk about that briefly and then we'll go on to the next bit. But I'm
That,
really curious in
that's a
terms of red
very,
flags, because that to me
yeah,
would be a red flag
that's a very unique
now.
question. I don't think I've even been asked that or thought about that before. But my instinctual reaction is that the way somebody is when they're with you is more important than the things that they message and text to you, without a doubt.
Hmm.
Because messages, even ChatGPT aside, can be misunderstood. There's no tone, there's no texture to it. It's really hard with messages. I would say don't have important conversations over messages if you're in a relationship. Have real conversations face to face where you can see the person and you can look into their eyes and you can see their body language, you can hear their tone. And I think that I can absolutely see people putting stuff into ChatGPT saying, "How do I reply to this?" or craft
Yeah.
me a romantic message, or I just had this argument with my partner. Am I right or are they right? And here's a list of messages. So I can go back and say, I asked ChatGPT and it thinks that I'm right and you're not.
The crazy thing is with ChatGPT, it's a
Yes.
people pleaser. It wants to
Yes.
make you right. There's some really scary stuff of the way that ChatGPT doesn't matter what
Mm.
you put in ChatGPT, how wrong it is, it will try to validate you and say,
Mm-hmm.
it makes sense. It's okay. These are all the reasons why you're right. You could put in the kind of thing that's so
Huh?
clearly you're wrong, and ChatGPT will still say, yeah,
Yep.
I totally agree. I feel for you. So yeah, I just wanted to go briefly into that because I know we're going to go deeper into the
Yes.
technology side of things in another episode. But I just noticed that. And I think with what you're saying is that essentially it's more important. If the depth and the meaning is only available through messages, if you can't access that in person, or if you're not
Hmm.
seeing it as much in person, then
Yeah.
to me, that's a red flag in terms of depth and
Yep.
intimacy that someone is able to
I
reach.
agree. And I think when you spend enough time having real conversation with people, you can read messages and decide whether or not they've really written that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's some discernment there, I think, as well for people. Yeah.
Definitely.
Great question.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you. So, coming back to the honeymoon phase and how people kind of just throw themselves into it, they get really blindsided by it, and then they get to the hard part and they're like, what the
Mhm.
hell do I do now? How can people set themselves up in the honeymoon phase to be able to handle that um, discomfort better?
Mm.
Because it's coming, but how can they handle it a little better? And then another question came to my mind, but I'll ask you after that.
I think that I think stepping back and understanding what relationships really are and what make them successful helps you to reset your expectations of relationships and understanding that, yes, it's going to be like this at the start, but then at some stage, it's all going to settle down and calm down, and the day to day hits, and work and traffic and pressure and stress, and the normal life of either dating or by then living together and making your relationship more serious hits. And then how do we actually manage and navigate what that looks like in terms of longevity? So I think managing expectations right up front
Hmm.
and enjoy that honeymoon phase while it's there, but also know that the next phase
Yeah.
will come in, and the two of you need to be prepared for that. One of you can't prepare. The two of you need to have those conversations and be prepared together for what's coming up as you start to have the conversations about you getting more serious in your relationship. And if you're not having the conversation about that,
Mm.
you should be.
Right. So it's essentially in that beginning stage, really asking just essentially a direct question of when things get uncomfortable, what's your approach to that? What would you do?
Mm.
What are your thoughts? And probably someone who says, like, I don't know, I don't really think about it. Maybe you're not going to be able to have, no, you're not going to have the best time when the honeymoon
Yeah.
phase is over, but someone who can have an intelligent response to that or a
Hmm.
thoughtful response is someone who you could grow with, is
Yeah.
what I'm hearing.
I think really on in a relationship, you need to establish that you're a team very early on in the relationship if
Mm,
you're considering making that relationship somewhat exclusive and serious. And the more that you can get on the same side and understand that you both want a relationship, and it's going to mean lots of negotiation and lots of giving in, finding the right push and pull and being able to work through things together. If you can set that really early in a relationship and then hold each other to that standard, it will set you up for a much better chance to have a long-term relationship. If you're with somebody who is not able to
mm,
deal with any sort of conflict really early on, there's a red flag for you as well. Because
yeah.
that is only, even if they pull away and
And
get explosive and go and then return and then, hey, I'm so sorry, I don't know what came over me, I'll change. If they keep on doing that, then that's telling you what your relationship is going to look like in the future. And if you start to tolerate that, don't
yeah,
be surprised when that continues to happen.
yeah. And it's essentially it's actions speak louder than
Absolutely.
words.
Yep.
It's really important. And so the apology, yeah, of
Mm,
course, is important, but then it's the
mm,
action that follows that up that's the
yes.
most important. And this is a question I have on my mind because I'm sure there's a lot of listeners who are already in relationships who have already made all the mistakes we've been talking about. Because I have
Uh-huh.
also made all those mistakes. When me and my partner got together, we neither of us were
Mm,
self-aware at all. I mean, I wasn't doing too bad for being
mm,
23, but still in terms of knowing how to show up in a healthy relationship,
mhm,
not a clue. Um, so for the people who are in a relationship and they realize, well, I made all those mistakes, but we're
mhm.
still together, what would be what would you say to people in that situation?
If
Quick break, I have something super exciting to announce. I have just recently launched the next intake for my program Strength that takes you from skin picking to confidence and authenticity. If you want to reduce the length, severity, and frequency of skin picking sessions in a holistic way that addresses the root cause and helps you to become more present, to feel more confident in yourself, to become more authentic, to develop stronger boundaries and deeper connection and relationships with other people and yourself, to get out of your head and more in your body, to really enjoy life and love who you are, to not be so hard on yourself. That's what this program is all about. It is a deep, holistic approach to healing from chronic skin picking. And you have so much more to gain than just not picking. It's the same transformational journey that I have been on myself in healing from 15 years of chronic skin picking. And it's the same journey that gets my amazing clients results. An intake for this program is now open for the end of October. So if your heart is calling you towards this kind of deeply fulfilling and empowering work, click on the link in the show notes to learn more and to apply to join us. It is application only and we are only accepting 9 applicants. So if you're thinking about it, if you're curious to learn more, send in an application and we can figure out if this is the next step for you. And you can do that by clicking on the link in the show notes.
I would say that if you're together and you've made all those mistakes, then you're probably set up really well for a pretty good relationship. Because if relationships can survive those things and you're still facing things together and you're working through them together and you're talking and you both have a mutual respect and understanding for the relationship and for each other, then you're probably in a really good position to continue to grow your relationship because arguments will happen and fights will happen and mistakes will happen and yelling matches will happen and storming out of the house will happen. And all of those things are going to happen in relationships at some stage. But it's the repair that is so much more important than what happens because we're all humans. We all make mistakes. We all lose our shit. All of that. We all know that. But when your partner can still be there for you and keep showing up for you, and when you can go back and say, hey, you know what, I was really out of line. I'm really sorry about that. And you do actually adjust your behavior. So if you've been through all those challenges and you can still come
Mm-hmm.
back together and you can own your peace and you can, forgive and forget and continue on, you're probably in a pretty good spot. Mm.
Mm. Yeah. And sounds like what's important there is that firstly, both of you
Hmm.
want to make that change. And it's not just one person on one side
Mm.
compromising or trying hard or trying to
Mm.
create the change. And then also seeing, like you said, the behavior actually change after there's an apology or
Mm.
repair or something like that. So it's like you've been saying, it's a
Hmm.
team
Yeah, I
effort.
think we talked about in one of the previous episodes, but just to refresh for your listeners, if you approach things that there is a problem in our relationship, and it's like you and me together versus that problem, not me versus you because you're the problem, even if one partner's behavior is the problematic thing, as soon as you take it away from you're the problem to we have a problem, how do we work on this together? So you can get what you want and I can get what you want,
Yeah.
that goes a long way towards bringing down the walls and removing defensiveness and the resentment and the bickering that happens in a lot of relationships when you can't solve that.
Hmm. Yeah. And so what are some of the ingredients
That's a
to a healthy
wonderful question.
relationship?
and I won't just say chocolate, even though that's a great ingredient in everything.
It's great.
So once you
It's great.
once you get through that honeymoon phase, the next really important piece that you need to have, and you need to see this throughout the honeymoon phase that it is there, is compatibility. So some really basic compatibility in the things that you're looking for in life. And, I did a funny reel the other day about the song Opposites Attract and how that, maybe honeymoon phase, sure, it's all exciting and mysterious, but when it comes to long-term relationships, that's not actually the case. People who have similarities in the things that they want out of life, whether that's situational. So, family dynamics, educational, whether that's career based, whether that's where you would like to live, whether that's how you would like to live your life. People who have more of those things in common, and differences are okay. Like, you don't have to find somebody who is you, you know, in a female or male version. There's got to be some things that are different, but your differences should complement each other as much as possible, not be polar opposites. They can be polar opposites, some of those things, provided that you can both navigate that well. But generally, compatibility is going to be the next thing that takes your relationship from the passionate stage into a medium term, at least, relationship or a solid dating relationship. Yeah.
Hmm. So it's seeing, do we want the
Yeah.
same things for our future together? It
Yep.
sounds like. Do we want
Yep.
kids? Do we want to live in I mean, it would be difficult if you didn't want to
Hmm.
live in the same area. It's what you
Yeah.
want to live. And probably taking a bit to a deeper level, what sort of relationship do you want to have? Like, what are the expectations that we
Yes.
have of each other?
Yeah.
Is that compatible?
Yep. Are we able to work together on things? Do we have a general life outlook that's similar in terms of how we think life should be? Do we have the same view of what relationships should look like? I mean, there's a lot of different types of relationships available to people now. It used to be very simple man, woman, kids, community around it, cousins, aunties, uncles all come together. There's now very different types of relationships out there. So even compatibility in that sense is super important in a relationship. But the
Mhm.
more of those things you can bring together, the more similarities you have in the way that you want to live your life day to day and the things that you want to do and experience and grow into, and sort of the goals that you have for life, the more successful you're likely to have, because once you get through that honeymoon phase, you want somebody that you can go to the gym with and, hang out with friends with and do some cool adventurous stuff with, if that's your thing, like go camping or go skiing or whatever it is for you, share some hobbies, do some things separately, have a similar view on how you bring friends into your lives, have a similar view on how much family is intertwined in your life. All of those things just make it so much smoother and so much easier. Imagine having all of those things opposite, or all of those things not in sync. It can
Yeah.
be super fun at the start, but then you
Mhm.
hit a point where you're like, do I even like this person? Like once we get beyond all the exciting
Mhm.
stuff at the start, like how do I spend the rest of my life with this person? And if you haven't ironed out some of those things and figured out that you're actually compatible long term, you'll probably spend most of your time bickering with them.
Mhm. Yeah. And so how much sense would it make then to in the early stages, even in the first few dates, to kind of just talk about those things? Because there's a bit of a debate on, oh, I should just enjoy the dating, like don't make things too deep, don't get it too serious in the beginning. And then there's some people like, no, I go on the first date and I
Hmm.
ask all these questions, and then to really assess, like, does it make sense? It's almost like
Uh-huh.
a job interview
Yeah.
for some people. So what in your opinion is a good approach?
I think the best approach is to go what you're comfortable with. Go with the thing that gives you the most comfort.
Yeah,
I don't think there's
nice.
a one size fits all for that. I'm a fairly direct person, and if I happen to be single at this age in my life, God forbid if something happened to Mrs. H, and I had to go back into the dating scene, I'd probably be okay with somebody being really direct with me, because I'm fairly
Yeah.
comfortable and secure in my own skin, and I know what I'm looking for. But other people may find that as a bit of a turn off if that's super early in the dating. If you turned up on the first date and they're asking big questions. But then again, as you get
Mhm.
older, some of those things do become more urgent. Are you going to spend 3 or 4 or 5 dates with
Yeah.
somebody when you're 40 and you really want to have more kids, and the person in front of you doesn't want to? That there are time pressures that come with that as well.
Yeah,
So I
makes
think
sense.
I think the most important thing for you to do is to go with what feels good for you and the stage that you're at in your life and in your relationships. Some people like to casually date a couple of people at once
Mhm.
and see where they fit and who they're most attracted and compatible with, and then start to have bigger conversations, and that's okay. And then other people are like, I don't have time to
Yeah.
waste with people who don't want the things that I want. So you're probably going to scare some more people off up front,
Mhm.
but they're probably people who aren't compatible with you anyway. Hmm.
Yeah. And that really sounds like be true to yourself and don't fall into the people pleasing of like,
Yep.
oh, if I am myself with this, if I am direct, if I'm not, is the other person not going to want to talk to me afterwards? And it's kind of recognizing, when am I doing that? And staying true to yourself in the sense of, okay, if this person isn't into that, then they're not into me, because I want to ask those things, because those things are important to me. And don't I think I see a lot with a lot of people, they make
Mm-hmm.
themselves small
Yes.
in the beginning. They don't want to be too
Yeah.
annoying, they don't want to be too intense, they don't want to be too much. And so they keep themselves small and they bide their time. But then the person has gotten used to them
Mm-hmm.
being at
Mm-hmm.
that size in themselves. And so their expectation of who you are is actually not the truth. So yeah, it sounds like
Yeah.
stay true to yourself, even if it's uncomfortable, because if people are scared away by your intensity, I think a lot of people, I think I had this conversation or I saw it somewhere and I really resonated with it. But a lot of people, I think, a lot of people that listen to this, we're intense people. We
Yes.
just are intense people. And not everyone is going to vibe with that. And it's okay to be an intense
Hmm.
person, own it. Someone's going to love that, love the
100%.
intensity. Don't make yourself smaller because you're afraid that someone isn't going to like it, especially if it's the person that you're looking to spend the rest of your
Yes.
life with. Like there are plenty of people who will love your intensity. And there's plenty of people who aren't as intense as you who are better suited to people who don't want that kind of intensity in their life. And it's
Yeah,
nothing personal.
absolutely. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think there's also, like, as you were saying that, I feel like there's like a little bit of a fine line thing in there too. Because you know how, like, if you were to go on a date,
Mm.
you would probably be a little bit on your best behavior for that first date. Like, you want to put your best foot
Oh,
forward
yeah, true.
as well, right? You don't want to turn up and be like, this person thinks I'm a maniac because I just told them all this crazy stuff that goes through my head. And maybe date number three is the right one for that. So, absolutely,
Hmm.
stay true to yourself and be who you really are and don't make yourself small, but also be considerate for what the other person may be expecting from a first date as well. There's like a level of social skill in
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
totally. 100%. It's not just that
Yes.
black and white, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then as well, so this is
Hmm.
compatibility, finding out do we want the
Yeah.
same things in ourselves, in each other, in our
Mm.
relationship, in life. And for someone who hasn't yet had that kind of conversation with their partner, but they've already
Hmm.
been together a little while, where would you suggest they start?
I think start with a planning conversation about what you want your life to look like. So it can be as simple as it's the start of the new year, or a set date that you would like to choose. For a lot of people, it's New Year's resolutions, and couples do that together. They talk about what they'd like to do that year. You can start to open up bigger conversations in those spaces. Hey, I've always really dreamed of doing this. What do you think about that? And start to navigate those bigger conversations together. And you don't have to wait for New Year's, of course. You can do it at any stage that you're comfortable doing it. But what really works for Mrs. H and I is to have that conversation around the start of the year, around, what does this year look like for us? Where are we going to go on holidays? What are we going to do? What are you going to do? Is there anything in particular that you're looking at or thinking about? For me, it's often business stuff. For her, it might be some study or some goals. But you can start at that point and then grow that conversation, or you can just be really direct and be like, hey, I've been thinking about this a lot. I think we should start talking more about what our goals look like and what we want to do together and our compatibility
Hmm.
levels. That way may be a little bit more intense, and for intense people like us is okay. But the softer approach is starting to flesh out goals and plans and what does this year look like and what does next year look like and where are we going from here type conversations.
Hmm. Yeah,
Mhm.
I love that. So the two options, the intense option
Intense
and
or
the softer
soft?
option.
I'm intense all the way.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I'm definitely the kind of person that just says like, "Hey, this has been on my mind," and then my husband's automatically like,
Hmm.
"Okay, cool." He knows where it's not gonna be usually it's not just a simple thing or a simple
Yeah.
idea or a simple question. But I think just something I wanna talk into a little bit is that having those kind of conversations can be really scary if you're the one initiating them. If you're the one that has
Hmm.
it on your mind and maybe your partner hasn't
Mm.
really been thinking about it. And so for those who feel a bit intimidated or a bit scared of starting that kind of conversation, what would you
Oh,
say to
that's
them?
a great question. I would say to them two things. One, try to be as clear as possible about what you're trying to say and what you want. Because the clearer the communication, the more comfortable you're going to feel saying it, and the easier they're going to understand it. So they're not going to misconstrue or have to guess what you're trying to get at and build that anxiety around, oh my God, what are they saying to me? So be as clear as possible. And then here's a functional tip: do it while you're out walking together. So, a
Mm,
confronting thing when you want to have hard conversations with somebody is to sit down and be like, "Hey, I really need to talk to you." And then like sit down face to face or next to each other on the couch and try to get the other person's attention. That can be difficult for a lot of people. That can bring that immediate rush of adrenaline, like, oh my God. Because in relationships, you never really say, I really need to talk to you, unless it's something serious or bad or someone's died. And we don't want any of those things to happen. So, Mrs. H and I, when we have these sorts of bigger conversations or deeper or conversations that we think the other person might find confronting, we do it while we're out walking. Like we'll go and do a 5K walk together or something like
Mm.
that. And, you're talking and you're thinking and you got other things on your mind, I guess, as well, that you can just start to bring up and start to talk out and then move into the bigger things. It works really well.
Yeah,
Mm.
I like that. And I like that you mentioned the simplicity of get really clear on what it is that
Mm.
you want to communicate. I would even say write it
Yeah.
down. Like give yourself a 1 or 2 sentence script that you can just
Mm.
read out
Mm.
or memorize, because I think for people who get really anxious with this kind of stuff, then the over explaining comes in. And that's a lot of information and can be
Yeah.
overwhelming for the other person. And because the anxious person is they're probably anticipating a bad
Mhm.
response. And the overwhelming information and the confusion behind it, because it's not clear, can then elicit a not so positive response or just frustration or confusion or anxiety in the other person. And then it can just divulge into a mess of miscommunication. And so I really like the get really clear on what it is
Yep.
that you want to communicate. And what I found can be helpful for me is to dilute it down into one sentence. And I don't mean a sentence that you somehow manage to turn into a paragraph with lots of commas
Hmm.
and colons, but like literally one sentence. Just to because it in all honesty, it probably doesn't need what you wanna communicate doesn't really need more than one sentence to get the gist, get the basics of what you
Yeah.
wanna talk about across. And then, of course, there's more depth to that, maybe more to it, but to set a clear expectation of
Mhm.
what you wanna talk about should really just
Yeah.
take a sentence. And then it's also that challenge of how to funnel that anxiety into words that make sense.
Yeah. Yep. That's a really good point. And I think that when you're thinking about funneling the anxiety into words that make sense, the overarching thought process and feeling around what you're doing should be that this conversation brings us closer. Like that's what this
Mm,
conversation is for. It's
yeah,
to bring us closer. It's to build our future together. It's to raise something that's important to me that I know my partner will want to support me with. And that can help to
yeah,
bring down a little bit of the anxiety. You're still going to feel it if you're not used to having bigger conversations with your partner, but just knowing that that's what it's for can take that defensiveness and combativeness out of what you're trying to say to them. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I like that. And something to just throw in there as well. Starting the conversation with, I love you, I appreciate you. Somewhere where we often get lost is because we might have anxiety about having a particular conversation. It's probably because a part of us is anticipating a negative response. And then that can make us start off a conversation already closed off, already trying to defend ourselves, which totally changes the tone and the
Mm,
tone that you use and the kind
mm,
of words that you use, which of course then is going to trigger them in a different way. And of course, yes, we're all adults, we're responsible for our own emotions and our own reactions, but it does make such a big difference when you start a potentially difficult conversation with openness and love
yes.
and connection, even if it's kind of scary. Just being very aware of how am I coming
Yeah.
across? Am I totally dead
Hmm.
expressionless and, like, almost glaring at them when I'm talking to them right now? Or do I have a bit of a smile? Have I touched them on their arm or their leg? Have I said that I love them? Am I starting it that way? Because that just it makes
Mm.
such a big difference.
I totally agree with that. And I think for me, that's where the
Mhm.
walking frame comes into it, and having the conversation while you're out in the
Yeah.
sunshine, while your blood's pumping a little bit, while your nervous system is already expending some energy, it can help to bring some of that anxiety down because it feels a little bit more casual, even though you're having a big conversation, than sitting down on the couch face to face and then trying to bring up something that's super important
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah. I like that. Awesome. And so then we've talked a bit about start off talking about the difference between love.
Mhm.
Love's not enough, it needs more. What makes relationships work. So we've talked about the
Mhm.
ingredients. So one of the ingredients, compatibility. And then how do people continue on with a healthy relationship?
Yeah, so probably the final ingredient before we talk about the continuation is shared values and life goals, which go a little bit
Ah,
beyond the capability piece. So that's more about the kids and schools and family and where we're going to set up our life and all of that. If you have more of those things in common, it takes you beyond that medium term dating seriousness into the okay, well, we're attracted to each other, we are compatible in the things that we want out of life, and our values are shared. So we live in a similar way.
mhm.
You know, we both like health and fitness, and you know, we both like trust and integrity and love, and we both value family. And that's like the to me, they're the three big ingredients that you need to have a long-term sustainable relationship. And then there's like a couple of things that you sprinkle over the top of that that are super important as well. But to me, sort of sit on a different level. It's like these are the ingredients, and the icing would be commitment and the ability to communicate really well.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yes. I mean, having commitment and an ability to communicate, that really it means that you can if you have
Mhm.
those things in place, like values and compatibility, you can really work through
Yeah,
anything.
absolutely. Absolutely. And the reason I say that, I just
Yeah.
want to really clarify that point. The reason I say that they're the things that are sprinkled on top is because you can have commitment and you can have really great communication and still not be compatible long term and still not have the same life goals and still
Mm.
not be able to have a relationship as a result. So that's why I kind of feel like those three ingredients need to be there. And then the overarching piece needs to be the ability to communicate and have a strong commitment to each other and the
Yeah.
relationship that you have. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? I can attest to that because my husband and I mean, we've grown a lot in our relationship. And we've grown into recognizing, yes, we're very compatible. We've grown into it's definitely take
Hmm.
growth on both sides, but we do share a lot of values. Also because it's become a
Mm.
conversation that we've had. But the commitment and communication side of things has definitely been a huge area of growth. Like we didn't the commitment, yes. Commitment to deeper work on the relationship is something that's had to be work on. Commitment to each other and not like looking outside the
Hmm.
relationship. That's always been there. But the communication aspect, oh man,
Mm.
that's like that
Hmm.
wasn't there. Neither of us knew how to communicate. So I can really see how when you have the foundations of the shared values and compatibility and things like that, how then it's kind of like what people are now learning is the next level of commitment, next level of communication that then can help you to really build a deep and stable relationship.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Really well said. And great that you guys have had that growth because communication is one of the hardest pieces to have in a relationship because
Hmm.
it's something that brings up so much in you when you have to communicate. And especially when you have to have those big
Yeah,
conversations that we were talking about. And it's also really normal
definitely.
for relationships to go through periods where the communication's strong and then periods where the communication's not strong. And there needs to be some work in amongst that to be able to work through and to be able to learn to
Yeah.
communicate better again. And this is all where the education and the growth
Yeah.
piece comes into these relationships.
hmm And it's just, I mean, it's such powerful work. And I even me and my husband, we had a bit of a disagreement. I think it was last week or something. But after the disagreement, we worked through it. We said, we handled that
Yeah.
so
Hell
much
yeah.
better
Hell
than we
yeah.
used
How
to in the
good's that?
past. And we high fived.
Like, that's brilliant.
Yeah,
That's
it's
so
good.
good. I'm really happy for you. You guys are
Yeah.
great together.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. And it's seeing when you get to see that kind of growth in your relationship in yourselves and the other person, it's it's really, I don't know how to find the word for that, but it brings you closer together because you're actually building something together. Because you can't improve your level of communication alone. That has to be
Hmm.
done with another person, and the most powerful space to do that in is in a relationship, an intimate
Hmm.
relationship with another person. You can't do it alone.
Yep.
Not possible.
Absolutely agree. And I think a strong relationship like that can heal a lot of the stuff that you've been through in your life, whether it's relationship related or not.
Mhm.
Having those aspects in your relationship and then the ability to talk about it and be committed to each other will really help you move through a lot of pain that you've experienced in your life. And that level of growth, as you said, will absolutely bring you closer together.
Yeah. Absolutely. So then on the point of how to continue a healthy relationship, what do you have to
Hmm.
talk into with
I
that?
think you just nailed that really well, which is growth, continued growth on a
Yeah.
relationship. So people should grow individually and they should grow together as well. And the relationship will grow
Yeah.
as a result of that. So having your own individual
Yes.
pursuits is really
And
important,
yeah.
as is having shared relationship pursuits and things that you do together to experience more of the world together, to grow together, to raise children together, and to be able to put together the things that you want in life in terms of growth.
Mhm. Yeah. And what you're saying just there brought something to my mind. I think it was a post I read, but whatever isn't growing is dying.
Yeah.
And so if there is growth in your relationship, then that's essentially the sign of
Mhm.
something healthy, basically. Because if something that is living, I mean, your relationship is alive. It's a living thing. You're two living beings creating something together. It's a living thing. And so if it's not growing, then it's dying, if you think of it that way. And I think that's really, I think it's a very, it's kind of like the image that comes to my mind is, a
Yep.
flower that's growing. When it stops growing, it starts to wilt. The petals fall off. It eventually shrivels up. It goes brown. It dies. It
Hmm.
goes back into the earth. And that's essentially with a relationship. It's this flower that's growing, and it can keep growing and growing and growing if we are growing in ourselves and in a connection with each other, or it will start to wilt. The petals will start to fall off. And this is often what happens after the honeymoon phase. If people don't really know what they're doing, it's the growth stops. I mean, there wasn't really growth in the honeymoon phase. It's just a whole lot of like dopamine, serotonin, and it's just
Bones.
fucking awesome. Yeah, a lot of hormones. And then the growth opportunity happens after that when it gets uncomfortable. And then you have this flower, but is it going to bloom or is it just going to shrivel up and go back to the earth and then you start again?
And of course, you have to tend to that flower. As much as there is growth, there has got to be shared
Yeah.
effort in tending to the relationship in
Yeah.
the day to day and the minute by minute things that go on. Because as I said at the start, the stresses of life, when they come in with work and kids and everything else that goes on, traffic and oh my God, traffic and and finances and all the other things that can get in the way of relationships. When
Mhm.
those things start to land on you, you need to be able to continue to tend to your relationship. So you need to keep on working through things. You
Yeah.
need to keep on communicating. You need to keep on showing up for each other and loving each other and being compassionate and sharing and having fun together. And all of those things, parts of growth.
Hmm. Beautiful. Such an incredible conversation. And I have one
Yes,
more question for you. But before that, you've just done something really exciting. So I wanted to ask you about that because the conversation with relationships is something that people are obviously, I mean, I love these kind of conversations. And you've just started a
I
YouTube
have just started a YouTube
channel.
channel.
So tell us a bit
So
about that.
I've started a YouTube channel called the Personal Power Project, which is the name of my business. And what I've decided to do is to just try to spread my reach far beyond what I'm doing on social media because I get so many comments and so much great feedback that those short, sharp, educational posts are really valuable to people and just really succinct. And I have a fairly direct way of talking, as you know. So I'm able to clarify points really quickly and get people thinking about those educational aspects and pointing out what some behaviors look like and pointing out what healthy looks like. And I've started to put on YouTube and I've gotten 1,000 odd views on some of those videos in 24 hours, which is absolutely phenomenal because thank you because it means more people are getting access to the education that I'm talking about, that I'm so passionate about getting out to people. Because there's all these emotional aspects to relationships and all this healing work. And I know we've talked about attachment styles and all of those other things. But I feel like the conversation we've had today is much more functional and it's much more just about learning how to do it better and then being able to put that in place. And that's what I aim to do on my YouTube channel through short videos, through 5 to 10 minute content pieces. And then, of course, I would love to also put some of my longer, workshops and even these sort of podcasts up for people to dive into to be able to learn more and then hopefully be able to have more of the relationship that they want to have rather than the relationship that they have at the moment if they're unhappy in it.
Awesome. I'm so glad you're doing a YouTube because I feel like what you share fits so well there.
It does.
And it's such a great way to get access to more of your knowledge and your wisdom and your insights and perspectives on this topic. So, for anyone who wants to check out Adam's YouTube, it's going to be in the show notes, and also all the other social media platforms they can connect with you on. My final question for you is because I always love. I mean, you've already given so many tangible tools and tips, but what I love to leave people with is just one thing, one really tangible thing that they can walk away with. So, what's one tool or technique or question that people can use today or this week that will help them in their relationship?
I think the very first place to start is communication and learning how to navigate hard conversations, learning how to navigate uncomfortable conversations is the most important starting point for most people. Because once you can start to communicate far better, then you're going to get to the compatibility and you'll get to the longevity of your relationship and you'll be able to manage conflict so much better. So, learn to be able to communicate better in your relationship would be the first thing that you can do.
Yes. And so basically, go have that hard conversation this week. Stop making excuses. Go do it.
Absolutely. And
And
can I
yeah,
just share a quick, can I just like pump my content a little bit more just for a moment?
go for it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Um, so I actually run a free group on my Facebook that has a short course called Reset Your Relationship in 28 Days. And beyond the attachment theory stuff that we've talked about before in the relationship blueprint, there is a module on there specifically on how to have hard conversations with scripts, with the emotional state to get yourself to, with timing to set up that relationship, with how to layer out the expectations of how it would go, with how to set some ground rules on how to have that conversation. And that course is completely free and it's all on video with downloadable workbooks and there's no strings attached at all. And it's actually the most powerful module out of my full paid 12-month program that I've decided to give away to people for free So when I say educate yourself on relationships, if you hear this and communication is a place you want to dive into as a starting point, then please go and join that group and download those modules and work through them, because it is a great starting point. It's been really successful for about 700 people so far over the past couple of months who have joined and gotten into that group and started to use those tools.
Wow, that's
Mm.
amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that because that is really, I mean, to have like a script and someone clearly explain this is how to have a hard conversation, that's just such an incredible tool. So thank you for sharing that. And that's going to be in the show notes to join that group because that can be done this week. So if you feel like those listening, if you feel like, yeah, there is a hard conversation that I'm absolutely terrified of having because I don't know how to go about it, then that sounds like the place to go.
Absolutely. And it's
Awesome.
tried and tested. They're scripts and they're conversations that I have in my own relationships.
Amazing. And you and Kate have an amazing relationship. So they work
I'm
well.
very lucky. I'm very lucky,
Well, thank you so, so much, Adam. Amazing, amazing
as
conversation as
always.
always. And I'm looking forward to diving into the next two
They're going to
topics
be
with you.
awesome.
Really looking forward to them. They are, as always.
Well, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. Love hearing your thoughts as well and your feedback, and love sharing value with your listeners and your viewers. So thank you.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me and listening to this episode. I really appreciate you being here. And I love that this podcast attracts people like you, like minded people who are into personal development, growth, and going deep beneath the surface. If you love this episode, if you took some value away from it, leave a 5-star review. On Spotify, you can literally comment on the episode, and on iTunes or any other platform, you can leave a review. Any kind of interaction that you give to this podcast supports me and helps to push it out to more people. And I super appreciate it. So if you did get value out of this, it'll take just 30 to 60 seconds to leave that 5-star review or sharing your thoughts as well. And don't forget, all the links that were mentioned in this episode you will find in the show notes. I wish you a very, very lovely week, and I will see you next Tuesday for the next episode of Untapped Confidence.